Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael, of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, or speech, if we will, we do not intend for it to be long. Nonetheless, this is something like if we understand in the scriptures, say when someone has a dream, or even say maybe in the scriptures or outside the scriptures, when somebody is told something and it rests upon one spirit, and so forth and so on. And I spoke upon this matter on the channel in the past. And the channel I'm talking about in particular is Moreh Yeshaya Torah Lessons. And brothers and sisters, what that is the fact that not being funny or never ever calling the name out, because that's not necessary, brothers and sisters, having spoken offline about the matter as well. But it's something that I want to gain understanding of, because I seek information. I don't claim to know everything. If those who know and supported the book, you will know that the bibliography in the book that a brother wrote is not a short bibliography. You understand? So I say all of that to say that definitely a brother looks forward to being put on to information and so forth and so on. Like recently, a brother was told, and I will not attempt to have this to be long-winded, that it is not, brothers and sisters, appropriate behavior for a person that is a said Moreh to say regularly, text, inbox, call, even maybe anything, any form of communication, by regularly saying good morning or good night. Now, here is the situation that troubles me in my mind, not trying to be funny or nothing like that. We are Israelites. Most of the people subscribe to the channel, from what I see when I look at the subscription list, is of the house of Israel, at least by name. You understand? Shalom, brother Dorayahu Ben Dora. Shalom, Ak, how you doing? And the word Moreh is teacher. Now, every Moreh that I had, I was always expected to say good evening, good morning, good night, good afternoon, sometimes in that particular manner. Sometimes in English, I'm saying sometimes in Hebrew. Boker Tov, good morning. Zaharayim Tov, good afternoon. Ereb Tov, good evening. Lala Tov, good night. And I have to ask you to excuse the language real quick, to go by a person that is said a Moreh and not say such deliberately, got a foot in your ass, or extremely scolded verbally. You understand? Now, being raised in a home, I was raised outside of the congregation, if we will, living in Flatbush at the time. I remember being told by my mom, may she rest in peace, and even other people, like, be at peace with people, even if you don't think they're at peace. You understand? To be like, peace, what's up? How you? Good? So forth and so on. To even be like my lady, Sarah, tells me to be that light, because you never know what somebody could be dealing with, in your good words, your kind words, your considerate words, your thoughtful words of peace and love can sit there and be a help to somebody. There is a song that Israelites sing, and it's popular on YouTube now. It's called Where There's Peace, There's Love, by Makom Shalom Yeshahaba. You understand? And in that particular case, it baffled me to be told, being said, that it is not appropriate behavior for a Moreh to regularly say good morning or good night. Not saying it before I became a Moreh, by title, if you want to call it that. It was taught to me from a Moreh or a Morah, which is a female teacher, that manners and respect will take you far in this earth. I remember when I was in the congregation of Kol She'erit in the Bronx, and the Moreh at the time, may he rest in peace, was Moreh Yosef. And we were in the congregation, this being in the late 1980s, and he had the congregation sit down in the basement of the place. And he was saying that he had a new song that he wanted to teach us. And part of the song, and no, I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to sing it, but part of the song is Yah be with you till we meet again. May his guardian angels hold you. May his guardian angels protect you. Yah be with you till we meet again. That's part of the song in that particular case. I was 9 years old when I was told that, and I'm 42 now. So we're talking over 30 years. So being impressed with that, being taught those kind of things and singing things of hoping one will be well. Yah be with you as while we're absent one from another. Why will we not in today's time, 2022 or otherwise, when we have better access and communication than say in 1989, via text, via phone calls, mostly everybody got a cell phone. You understand? Many people use WhatsApp throughout the length and breadth of the earth. I have friends that I speak online that live in Africa. You understand? And I tell them good morning. And I ask them, how do you say it in Zulu or Xhosa? Or how do you say it in Igbo? Or how do you say it in Twi, which is the language of the Ashanti? Or how you say it in Yoruba? You're not going to, brothers and sisters, get a language book, for instance, and not learn the greetings in that language book. You can go to any book on language about when you're traveling, and I can promise you there's going to be a section asking in that language, how are you? Good morning, good evening, good night, how much, take care, thank you, you're welcome. Those are manners. We say Toda all the time, brothers and sisters. So now, while a brother, regardless of one's gender, there are multiple amounts of people having been an author for X amount of years, having been teaching on YouTube for over 7 years, having written 12 books and written 3 other books with my lady, Sarai, and endorsing her book. The channel has grown as a process of that. I have been given donations, which I appreciate, and I say Toda for that. I have been seen on other people's video playlist, and I appreciate that. So what baffles my mind, brothers and sisters, is now having been known as a Moreh, but still a brother at the same time, still a nefesh or a person at the same time. What puzzles me is, when is it not of a Moreh inappropriate behavior to regularly say it? When we know that we still talk about, and I may have to go there and say it, my teachers used to say, inciting the book of Isaiah, the whole head is sick and the whole heart is faint. There is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been pressed, nor bound up, nor mollified with oil. Your cities are burned with fire. That's how the book of Isaiah starts in Isaiah chapter 1. So while we are coming from burnt out cities, the Bronx, devastated cities, Brooklyn, horrible places in some areas, Harlem. So while we're coming from these kind of places and situations, and I can speak mainly about New York because that's where I was born and raised at, why will we not want to say good morning? Why will we not want to say have a blessed day? Brothers and sisters, when Joshua spoke with the people in the Bible, in Joshua chapter 8, I believe, it says the men and the women. In the book of Ezra, when Ezra, the scribe, spoke with the people, it said the men and the women. So where do we get the concept in Israel now that being, quote, a Moreh means if I'm saying good morning, Boker Tov, or good night, Thalatob means that I want you as my second wife, when I never even endorsed such a thing on for myself. One of the things I state about polygyny is that it is of the house of Israel. And I too am of the house of Israel. But I know that of the house of Israel, it says, if you wise for yourself. If you scorn, you alone shall bear it. So again, I'm asking people to put the comments in there. Maybe I'm delusional on this or something like that. But when did good morning mean that I'm trying to hit on a sister? It doesn't mean that. So forth and so on. You understand? And this is not to sit there and be like a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4, but this is something like, when, and I'm not Egyptian, when a pharaoh had a dream and it kind of made him like, what in the world did that mean? I can't understand in Israel when people can say they have quote unquote respect for you, but then don't say good morning or good night. What? Take that maybe to another aspect. Well, do we? Because I know I don't. Do we say that at the jobs or at the schools we go to? Nah. We best not fix our mouth to even come out and say something like that. I have seen the spirit say of a nasty attitude, if you will. Maybe he or she didn't have a good morning, and it can happen. But I have seen HR, also known as human resources, escort people out of the building because they don't know how to get along with the coworkers. In school, even in public school, there's a thing says get along with others. And I remember being a child in the 80s, they had E for excellent, G for good, S for satisfactory, N for needs improvement, and U for unsatisfactory. You understand? And so forth and so on. Now, one of the things that I think the generation from 50 years old and younger can work on is getting our own schools. Because why will the older generation born, say, in the 40s or 50s or 60s, know what their parents went through in the 20s, 30s, and 40s? We're dealing with the matter of school, and you're trusting, especially if you know yourself as an Israelite, whether you call them Japhet, whether you say they come from the seed of Cain, whether you say they from the house of Esau, we know Israel whom we're talking about. We know when we're saying either Japhet, Cain, or Esau, that debate in the house of Israel, we all know who we're talking about. You send your children to those schools, and then you give them a spanking when they act incorrectly in those schools, knowing what your grandparents went through, who are the grandparents of what they went through. Their grandchildren are teaching your children. So here you are, knowing what your mother and father, making it a little personal. My grandmother in the 1930s used to have to put newspaper in her shoes to order to walk a mile to school. And I'm mean no disrespect to my mother or my father, but having gone through that, and their parents, my grandparents going through certain things like that, did we drop the ball and sending our children to their schools as opposed to developing our own schools? You understand? When the teachers are the children and the grandchildren of those who oppressed our grandparents. We need to step it up as a people. But when, brothers and sisters, we cannot say Boker Tov or good morning, we done missed the boat. When saying good night makes you think somebody, male or female, female to male or male to female, oh, he or she wants me in that way. No, it's simply saying that I remember being in the 3rd grade while we talk about school and elementary and children. I remember stepping over crack valves in the projects. You understand? Going outside, living on Nostrand Avenue. I remember, brothers and sisters, yo, you heard who got shot last night? Yeah. Your son just smoked him and just walked away like he gangster like that. That is a conversation when I was having at 8 and 9 years old. To now, knowing the kind of situations that some of us have seen as a people, even as children, When I first saw someone personally get shot when I was 9 years old, and I saw the blue fire come from the gun, that's not what they show you on TV. The way a gun fires and the way they show you on Hawaiian 5-0 and in the movies is not accurate. I did not know it leaves a literal fire and smoke. You understand? Until I was 9 years old. And so I'm saying all of that, brothers and sisters, to say, in light of what we're talking about, knowing that I personally had a cousin that was murdered in 1997. He didn't make it to age 22. Knowing that there are Israelites, elders, dying left and right and left. Knowing that there are Israelites who are suffering or have suffered from the ailments that this society talks about. Knowing that there were Israelites, at least I know more than 2 who have died from AIDS. Why will we not want to say Boker Tov regularly? Good morning. Why will we not want to say, how are you? Be well. Good night. When we read in the scriptures, in the book of Psalms, it speaks of the arrow that flieth by day and the arrow that flieth by night. You understand? Like in Psalms where it says, the sun shall not smite me by day, nor the moon by night. Yah is thy guardian. Yah is thy shield. So when do you become known as inappropriate in behavior and saying good morning or good night? Now, let's break this down, brothers and sisters. I don't want, brothers and sisters, personally, if you know you're wise for yourself. Another sister as wife. Not to get too personal online, me and my lady spoke about that. That's something that I personally do not want. So I promise, and keeping my nose clean, I promise, brothers and sisters, that's not happening. Sisters, when brothers say good morning, whether they say Boker Tov or understanding says what? Bakar Tawab, depending upon what Hebrew we want to argue is right or not. Whether you say Laila Tob or Layala Tawab, whatever you want to say, what Hebrew is right. The heart of the matter is, sisters, he's not asking you to be his wife or his Isha or his Asha, depending on whatever Hebrew we want to say is right. You understand? He's simply saying good morning or good night. Brothers, same thing. Just because she says shalom or anything of that sort, you understand, does not mean that she wants to be your wife or second wife. I see the comment, the brother Darayahu asks, how are you and the family? We are well. How are you and your family, brother? Yeah, that seems to be the thing now a little bit. And saying Israelites are saying that now, that it is inappropriate behavior to say good morning or good night. That's not in the book that I read, brothers and sisters. You understand? That's not in the teachings that I came up under and the teachers that I had. Some of my teachers are polygynists. Some are not. Some were not. Some were. You understand? But I just wanted to ask that question, as it was stated to me that it was inappropriate behavior, you know, for a Moreh. And mind you, when I was told that, I wasn't even told have a good day or shalom or anything like that. So I don't know what ruach or spirit or energy people were walking with or have, but I promise you, brothers and sisters, if we don't get our act together, I have to ask, maybe excuse the language, if we don't fix our shit up, we're going to sit there and go through another generation, brothers and sisters, of people in that particular case. You understand? I'm not going to get into who exactly the person or people are, because this is something that is periodically done in the house of Israel. You understand? You know, that kind of matter. Because we can't tell the nations to stay out of our box or inbox. because they all in your mailbox. They gave your child a social. They follow you by your social. You understand? They follow you by your bank account. Tell the nations that. And then we come on Shabbat, Sabbath, and say Shabbat Shalom. If you wait to Shabbat to say Shalom, maybe you got too much to do on your hands or whatever like that. You understand? But we can't continue as a people not communicating one with another. Because if we are each other's most valuable resources, why in the world would you not want your brother or sister to have a regular relationship in respect and wishing you well in peace when we know the Most High? And I apologize to the elders for two of the words I used in this. But if we know our relationship before the Most High as his children, and if you are a parent, how would you feel if your child was telling another child of yours, his or her brother or sister, don't tell me good morning, don't tell me good night? You'll be ready to put your foot in your child's behind. You will sit there and ask your child, come here, what's wrong with you? That your brother and sister can't sit there and say good morning, good night. Why do you have a chip on your shoulder? Why did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed? And some parents, like most of our parents, you know, if you start to get emotional and crying, they'll be like, shut up before I give you something to cry about. You know, some of us know about that kind of matter. But in closing out, if we know we are the children of the Most High, brothers and sisters, why will we ever think that our Father, Abinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King? You know that's the prayer that some people say on Yom Kippur or the Day of Atonement. That's the part of the prayer, Abinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Katanu lefaneka, we have sinned before you. Abinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Kapir kulanu, pardon all of us. That's part of a prayer that some people say on the Day of Atonement. But then we turn right around in certain cases and say, oh no, don't say good morning or good night to me, because that's inappropriate, because of this or that. When we know good and well that we're supposed to be united. And when children are not united, what does a father do if not slap his children around because they don't want to get along? Isaiah chapter 1, it says, on what part will you be stricken, seeing you stray away more and more? How many beatings are we going to take, house of Israel, before we learn that we have to be, like our book says, even by Balaam, of the house of Israel, a people not reckoned among the nations? That's in Numbers, brothers and sisters, chapter 22 or Numbers chapter 23, that Israel is not to be reckoned among the nations. So with all of that, how do we get the concept that it's okay to not regularly greet each other? That's something I'll never understand and really don't want to understand. But if I'm tripping, if I'm mistaken, if I'm in my feelings, if the quote Moreh is off on this one, I put this on 3 different channels at the same time. Please rebuke me, and my number is up inside of the chat. I'll put it in there. Maybe I'm the one who's going off on this one, but I was thinking something different. 908-587-4841. All right? Peace. Shalom.